Welcome back, folks. Today we're here with Jake and Jake. As discussed in the last video, I adopted a dog who also has my name and I didn't change it. So anyway, what we're going to talk about today is, first of all, it's almost Christmas. And for that, you might be saying to yourself, oh, I want to get a new car for Christmas for myself or for a family member if you're rich or whatever it is. So we're going to talk about that. You're seeing all over the news and YouTube, the car market's crashing. Sales are declining, prices are declining, inventory is increasing, which would make sense, and stuff like that. So it is crashing in that sense. Will it crash to a point where it, goes back to 2019, 2018 values? Absolutely not. Inflation alone is going to make sure of that, right? I mean, we've had probably 15% worth of inflation since 2019. I can put that on the screen. So you're not going to ever expect to see a price that's not at minimum what it would have been in 2019 plus 15% for a 3-year-old, for a vehicle that's similar age from then until now. So that's just a reality situation. The thing that is different, though, about then versus now, interest rates are a lot higher, which should, all else being equal, actually lower the cost of a vehicle itself. So if the interest rates go up, your base price to some degree can go down because it's the only way they can get people to buy things in quantity. So there is that. Is that going to offset the amount of interest that you're going to spend? No. Right now we're at about 5.5% on a car loan, give or take. And then going back to the sales figures, they're down about 5%, apparently. Just reading an article here. Probably depends on who you talk to. But with all this being said, this is the market. Let's say you've got a car that's ending lease, or a car that's 5-6 years old and you just want to replace it, or you've got something 20 years old that's on its last legs and you have to replace it. What do you do in those scenarios, right? So everybody's talking about the crash. I feel like nobody's giving, not nobody, but a lot of people aren't really giving good advice on what you should do because of it. So I think the way that you navigate this, there's really 3 scenarios, right? It's that like 2 to 5 year old car that you have with relatively low miles, kind of the meat and potatoes, like used car you'd find on a dealership lot. Then there's kind of that 7 to 12 year old vehicle that you would find like a used car, small lot, with maybe 130 plus thousand miles, but it's still like in good shape. And then you got your like 15 to 20 year old vehicles that are just beat to death, 200 plus thousand miles, almost ready for the junkyard. So for scenario 1, if you've got that, relatively new used car in your possession now, and you want to trade that in on a new car, that's not a terrible spot to be in because new car values are coming down. But the problem is the way the market works typically, and I think in this case it is true as well, your new car values have to drop first for your used car values to then eventually drop. And it's kind of like a push-pull thing. So like the new cars fall first, and then the used cars actually get really dangerously close to the new car price, and then they fall, and then the new falls, and then the used falls. So if you can get a brand new vehicle right now for say $5,000 off, and your used car is probably only worth $2,000 less, let's say, than it was 6 months ago, you've net gained $3,000. And I think that there's a way that you can benefit from this. So an example, I know somebody who just traded in their 2017 Duramax Silverado for with 110,000 miles for a not quite brand new but almost brand new truck, and they had actually attempted to trade the same vehicle in about 6 months ago. And obviously it's an anecdotal evidence, but a couple of the trading values they had gotten back then and a couple of trading values they got now were not that much different. And of course the truck is 6 months older with more miles. So, it was not worth that much less. And then that new truck was worth a legitimate $5,000 less than it probably was 6 months ago, or the almost new used truck they bought. So there are deals to be had in that sense. Now, if you own the 10-ish-year-old car right now, it's a little different because your 10-ish-year-old car is definitely worth similar to what it was 6 months ago, but it's also just worth a lot less than the new vehicle you're looking to buy, or the almost new vehicle you're looking to buy. So then you have to ask yourself, like, do I kind of hope the value of my 10-year-old car stays relatively similar and the new cars come way down? We were seeing as much as $15,000 off of a half-ton pickup back in like 2019. Will that happen again? We don't really know, right? I mean, on a percentage basis, if there's 20 grand off a half-ton pickup, that would be about the same as 15 grand off in 2019. A little more, but so it's kind of a similar deal. So we have to ask ourselves, like, is that realistic? I don't know if it is, but if it were, then you're going to save way more money holding off driving that 10-year-old truck or car and then buying the new one in another 6 months to a year from now, if you can. So I think if you're in that 10-year-old vehicle range, if you can keep kicking the can down the road a little bit, you might stand to overall make more money, because even if your trade-in's worth $2,000-$3,000 less, that new vehicle's way cheaper. And then therefore, I would say a similar story for that guy who's in the position where their vehicle is just trash, toast, almost junkyard ready, right? If they can wait longer, obviously they'll save money on the new one. The problem is, at that point, if your vehicle's that dilapidated, it might not be worth putting the money into it to fix it. So in that case, I would say obviously you're just kind of at a point where you gotta bite the bullet and buy something. And if you are at that point, it's not the worst time in the world to buy, because prices have started to come down. You're at least not paying the peak. You're not paying MSRP at this point. You're paying something under it. Interest rates are a touch better than they were. So it is what it is. You just got to bite the bullet. I'd also encourage you to not just take your car to the scrapper right away. Go on Facebook Marketplace. Look at used prices. Man, even trashed used vehicles are holding $2,000-$3,000 values. Stuff that I would have sent to a junkyard 10 years ago, a car in that shape. Now you might actually be able to sell it. People pull the parts out of it, or they just cobble it together and make it run for another year or two. So you might get a couple bucks back that way too. So yeah, I mean, nothing too profound in this video, but I just think, I guess I haven't seen somebody break it down, kind of those three scenarios of buyers. Essentially the scenarios being high value trade, low value trade, no trade, right? That's kind of what it comes down to. And I just think, yeah, depending on where you fall, you have to make a decision. And, regardless, we're starting to get into a market where you can actually afford to buy a car. Maybe not yet, but I'm hoping that 6 months to a year from now, we really do see significant rebates off MSRPs and maybe a stagnation of MSRPs. Rarely do you ever see that, but maybe, you figure every year they bump an MSRP up $1,000, $2,000. So in 5 years, I mean, a truck could be $10,000 more just because they bumped the MSRP up and not really added much of anything to it. So it is what it is, but I'm hoping that kind of quells a little bit and things, you get rebates in the MSRPs and things balance out. Because right now, even still, it's expensive. And it's hard for people to just get around, So anyway, with that being said, Jakers is falling asleep. So as always, thanks for watching. God bless America. I'll see you in the next one. Merry Christmas.